Particularly in late summer, shortly before the grain harvest, the food supply situation for the millions of small farmers in the Sahel region becomes critical. Even in normal years, the modest stocks of grain are exhausted before new supplies can be brought in from the fields. At times like this, the Bambara groundnut, with its balanced content of nutrients, can quite simply be sustenance for survival. A few hundred grams of these nuts, boiled, roasted or raw, or even eaten unripe if need be, provide virtually all the daily nutrition a person needs.
The botanical name of the Bambara groundnut is Voanzia subterranea. Its flowers are papilionaceous, which means they resemble butterflies. When fertilized, they sink down into the ground by lengthening their stalks, and the nuts ripen just below the earth's surface. In this behavior and in appearance, the Voanzia subterranea strongly resembles the Arachis hypogea, known as the peanut, groundnut or monkey nut. The local strains of Bambara groundnuts in what is thought to be the area of origin around Timbuktu vary from light yellow to jet black and are sometimes even mottled.
L'espèce Voanzia subterranea a la capacité, comme l'arachide, de fixer l'azote.
Like the peanut, the species Voanzia subterranea fixes atmospheric nitrogen and is therefore a help in improving soil fertility. That's the verdict of agronomist Umani Angado, the head of this research station in the Bambara region, where they've recently started making an intensive study of this plant. In addition, there's its importance to the Sahel population as a crop which is ripe before any of the others.
C'est une petite légumineuse relativement riche en protéines.
This small, unassuming legume, which is relatively rich in protein, but which contains little oil, was for a long time neglected by researchers. Now, many scientists have confirmed that the plant has a high nutritional value and that it contains a good balance of food components.
No, these aren't Bambara groundnuts here. It's a field of ripe peanuts, waiting to be harvested by the traditional method, by hand. The vast peanut monocultures of the colonial era have long since disappeared from the former French Sudan, though. In those days, it wasn't difficult to get the Bambara people to work in the peanut fields, because the new plant, brought from Bolivia to Africa, resembled their own groundnut in so many ways. Since then, the peanut has been known in the Bambara language as tiga, while tiganikuru, the tiga with the short nose, is the name for their own nut, the Bambara groundnut, which was supplanted by the peanut.
Today, the United States and India dominate the world peanut market. African-grown peanuts are virtually no longer competitive. The producers of cooking oil in the industrialized countries have more or less stopped using them because of the cancer-inducing fungal poison aflatoxin often found in their press cakes.
If they're unable to sell the residue from the pressing process as cattle food, the factories which used to be the main customers find it no longer economically viable to make peanut oil from African-grown peanuts. For this reason, the small amounts still delivered to this collection point are only used for oil production for the domestic market.
Even the Koulikoro oil mill, the largest in Mali, where huge piles of peanut sacks used to be seen stacked up after every harvest, now only presses peanut oil for those who aren't themselves engaged in agriculture and who have enough money to buy cooking oil in the shops. And there aren't many of them in the Sahel region.
The bulk of the peanuts serves to meet the small farmer's own family needs, and it's mainly processed into peanut butter. Apart from karité butter, made from the nut of the tree of the same name, this is the only edible fat available in the Sahel region. It takes many hours of hard work to make peanut butter, shelling the nuts, roasting them and pounding them to a pulp.
They're not much concerned here about the cancer-inducing dangers of aflatoxin. In view of the fact that life expectancy is lower anyway, and that tropical diseases are a much more widespread problem, aflatoxin as a possible cause of cancer is of relatively little importance.
The peanuts can be evenly roasted in a little hot sand. The same method is also used with Bambara groundnuts. Because they weren't suitable for export, they were overshadowed by the peanut for so long that apart from roasting or boiling them, no other ways of cooking them are known in the Sahel region. If any traditional recipes ever existed, they seem to have been completely lost.
With their healthy balance of protein and other nutrients, Bambara groundnuts could improve the quality of everyday dishes like the traditional millet gruel, which would be of particular benefit to children, who often suffer from faulty nourishment. There's also no reason why butter shouldn't be made from Bambara groundnuts instead of peanuts. It would admittedly contain less fat, but on the other hand, there'd be no risk of cancer from aflatoxin.
This little plant has so much to offer that cultivation experiments are now being carried out by the agricultural researchers to try to produce yields which would make it interesting to farmers. It's been found to be exceptionally resistant to drought. Now other factors are being investigated.
Here, for experimental purposes, Voenzia was sown at shallow depths, the young agronomist Samba Traore is explaining. We're testing how the plant responds to fertilizer by comparing a yield completely without fertilizer to one with a dosage of 105 kilos of mineral fertilizer per hectare. Then we compare different local varieties, one directly from here with one from a village some distance away. The And thirdly, we compare results when we sow the seeds parallel with grain and when we sow 2 weeks later.
Ici, nous avons un plan de Wanzhou avec ses gousses.
Here is a plant with its groundnuts. As with the peanut plant, you can see the root nodules where microorganisms store the atmospheric nitrogen.